All right, welcome back to the double swing. Wow, it's been a topsy-turvy kind of event. Kind of great for me, not so great for others. Yumi, the curse is truly looking like a titan in this industry. Your picks can devastate even the greatest team's run. Na'Vi falling in the elimination stage, essentially the group stage, before the playoffs, after you pick them. Did you see it coming?
And the second consecutive event too. You know, it's not like I didn't pick them before and they didn't disappoint there. They failed at the World Finals, and then also now here in the elimination stage. It is quite surprising to see how much control I guess I have over some of the Goliaths, but it didn't seem to affect Spirit, even if they do look a little shaky themselves.
Yeah, they're not too convincing, but that's a conversation I think we'll have if we do end up picking them. They did make playoffs. They are still going to be in this conversation. Now, you did get the Mongolz pick. That's been the big story. Everyone's super excited. Again, another one we're going to have to get into. But no, the Na'Vi thing is insane, especially seeing as the last time they were available. Oh, we didn't. Yeah, before that I Am Rio, you don't pick them. Guest gets them. They end up going all the way and winning. It's just... It's pure cinema, really. It is.
Yeah, I mean,
let's take a look at the scoreboard. Let's see where we stand. Obviously, Yumi, we established this on the last episode. You're out of the running. I have also taken a 3-point lead over the viewers and guests. Now, we have no guests for this episode, so that means the viewers, it is up to you to try and keep me from wearing that crown and strutting around the screen obnoxiously on the final wrap-up of the year. When we do finally pay out the forfeits and put a nice bow on everything, it's all on you. I've got 66 points, you have 63. You do need to go incredibly ham, though. You need to basically be perfect in your picks, pick both finalists, and then hope I completely bomb. That's essentially where we're at. But yeah, with that, let's get into a little something different. Are you tired of looking like a chumping game? Sick of opening cases and getting trash skins? Check out Skin Club via my link in the description for a 7% deposit bonus. Skin Club is a case opening service who run a provably fair opening algorithm to give you truly random outcomes. Skin Club's battles mode has been upgraded, adding new things like crazy, team, and share modes just to make every roll a little more intense and a little more fun. I played a battle or two and managed to win some pretty crazy skins, and upgraded a group of them into a gorgeous MP9 hot rod. Perfect for some gold stickers. There is also a dragon event going on right now, so you can earn event points just by playing on the site. These points can be redeemed for cases, skins, and entries into huge giveaways. Skin Club accept a wide variety of payment methods, from cards and PayPal to skins themselves, as well as a range of crypto coins. Remember to play responsibly using the self-care tools provided, and use my link in the description to get a 7% bonus. A big thank you to Skin Club for supporting my channel. Well, first pick, it's going to be tough. I think this is going to be very tough. We are only picking one favorite, one underdog each. Man, I've just got to work through the bracket in my head where I expect this to go. My pick'ems are not actually locked. In fact, I haven't even made the selections yet. I've been tossing and turning about this because I had this conversation with Quacker on Sunday. I was like, yeah, Mongolz probably have a good matchup into a lot of teams. I actually don't like them. The team I don't actually like them at all against is MOUZ. In a really weird way. For me, that matchup doesn't really make sense. There's no weakness on MOUZ to exploit. Everywhere they want to take heads-up fights, MOUZ have strong players. I'm a little concerned about that, so I don't think I'm going to take Mongolz as an underdog.
They beat them in the best of ones, though.
Yeah, they beat them in one best of one. I've got to believe in them to do it again. I've got to see them do it in a series, and that's where I struggle. So I'm going to take first pick, my favorite to win the entire major. They do have a tough bracket. They have struggled to show that they are a team of this caliber, but I got to take some risks. I don't want to just pick like the comfortable picks and allow myself to edge a win with 1 point. I'm going to go all in. I'm going to give the viewers the chance to actually do this. I'm taking Vitality. It's been a long time since Vitality have looked like a title-winning side, at least in the general consensus. You know, they haven't made a grand final since they won Cologne, which is quite far back. And since then, they've been up and down. They've had excuses for some events, such as the stand-in situation with m0NESY becoming a dad. But I'm just believing in the form I've seen from them at the RMRs and in this elimination stage. Ultra dominant, not dropping a map. Looking really comfortable, with a lot of their win conditions activated, plus a little bonus in m0NESY stepping up his performance massively. I think Apex, has enough momentum here, enough positive vibe going that I don't think I'm going to have to worry about any blow up, any emotional wrench in the works. They already have so much momentum, and they get what I consider to be one of the layups of the event, of the bracket, straight out the gate. FaZe have not impressed me. They didn't impress me making it through to playoffs. I didn't think they would even make it this far. Good for them, they did, to be honest. Some insane calling and decision-making, ballsy moments from Karrigan to really seal it up. I was super impressed watching back that Dust 2, especially. But I think Vitality are going to smash them here. This is a team who have far more firepower, a lot more confidence, a lot more, I think, just demo that shows that they are a legit tier 1 title-winning side. I'm worried for what FaZe are going to be next year. I think this is the end of the road for them. Vitality, 2-0, then on to the real big matchup. The question mark of the entire event. And they beat G2 in a playoff. They may not have to play them. But I think once they do, if they beat them, the final's almost pre-written.
So I'm kind of glad you've picked Vitality. I say that like it matters which team I pick. They bomb out anyway. But I like that you've picked Vitality because I had the same thought when I first saw the brackets, and based on sort of just the initial heat check coming out of the elimination stage, just thinking Vitality probably like one of the cleanest teams we've seen so far at the RMRs. But then I also have to remind myself that in the RMRs they did play FaZe in a best of 3, but they played Gamer Legion and BetBoom. And you know, BetBoom was definitely the game that was the most comfortable. Every other game was a little tighter, and you know, you still had that uptick in performance from players like m0NESY. But I don't think the road to the playoffs has actually been as strenuous as some of the other teams, for example. Like,
no,
I don't think
they
haven't had to play super complicated, super crazy teams, and their closest win was against Furia, which FaZe themselves struggled with in the sort of lower, I guess, the last bracket out of this, out of the elimination stage. So I think I've had to like, I guess, refocus how I view this Vitality, because I do see the numbers and I see, oh wow, m0NESY's actually, you know, since he came back into the team, they're looking a little bit more cohesive, and they're playing a really solid game against all the teams that they've faced. Which I get that you can only play the team in front of you, but if they're not being tested against some of the best teams, I don't think it's an accurate sort of heat check coming into something like the playoffs, where, you know, FaZe had to, I guess, warm up into the elimination stage. You have Heroic and G2 on their side of the bracket as well, where I think they've had to play tougher teams to get into this position. So I'm a little bit, I was hesitant to, I guess, leap on Vitality. I think my initial reaction to this playoff bracket was Vitality and Spirit or the Mongolz, if I'm really being super optimistic in the finals. And I guess for me, I see a little bit of weakness in the picking philosophy just based on the teams they've faced.
Yeah, that's fair. And there's a reason that teams like G2, Heroic have had to face tougher opposition. They lost BO1s.
Yes.
Vitality didn't, because they have so many weapons, so many ways to win BO1s. They don't have to be a little bit concerned, oh, we lost a pistol. Good thing I have an AWPer, 2 riflers, and bonus this support player who can just go off and win any gun round. They just did it. They just balled out. They made it through, no questions asked. But the problem that everyone has with Vitality, that we've had with them since basically Cologne, is that the playoff stage, they struggle to beat the big opponents. So I wouldn't even really cared that much if they had faced G2 in the groups. They've done it before. They've beaten them in the groups handedly before, and then lost in playoffs. So I'm essentially gambling on this being another one of those Vitality runs where they actually in the playoffs deliver as we know they can, as they show they can in the group stages time and time again. We're looking at ZywOo, we're looking at Spinks, 2 of the classic fall-off players to step up again. And it is a risk. I know it's a gamble. I said that in my preamble to even picking them.
Yeah.
There are more comfortable, more sure thing picks. If you look at Spirit's bracket, just saying, like, that looks like a more sure thing, considering they don't have to face a G2. They don't have to face a plucky, annoying, hard to put away FaZe. But I'm going to take Vitality just on the basis that I believe that this is an event where they peak, they smash everyone, and they look amazing.
Okay. Right. I guess. God, I haven't even really thought this far ahead. And
it's a difficult series of decisions, isn't it? Like...
And I worry that I'm being biased, but
here it comes.
Yeah, I mean, you know who I'm picking.
Yeah, I've already got them
based
on
off of
screen.
that.
I've already
Yeah, I
got them
know.
on
Yeah, I'm
screen.
picking the Mongolz. I'm picking the Mongolz. They're an underdog still coming into this category, and even though they have like favorable seeding coming out of the elimination stage, they find themselves against a MOUZ that they beat in the best of ones in that previous stage of the tournament. So for me, I mean, this is the best the Mongols have ever looked. It's the best Asian Counter Strike has looked in a long time, and I think it's hard for me to not get wrapped up in that journey, having watched them through all the fucking iterations and all the changes that they've had to make, and the strategic shifts that they're also going through as well. I I like this team a lot right now, and I know we both harp on them quite a fair bit. And sometimes I think even towards the start of this season, we're maybe a little disappointed that we didn't see sort of initial success from them at the start of the season, or maybe not in the way that we liked. Um, but they do have, in the same way that you make a conversation about Spirit and the easier side of the bracket. If Mongolz come in with that same level of form and can beat MOUZ in a best of three, where best of one is a different story to that best of one, then I actually would kind of favor them in a Spirit matchup as well, because it's not like they haven't beaten them on a big stage before. So it's I think it's an interesting conversation to think about the Mongols and where the expectations were coming into this event were, and now with all the ramblings of, oh, it's a first major in Asia, and sure enough, there's this Asian team that are knocking doors down. I find it hard not to get mixed up in that as well.
Oh, the excitement's real. It's you can touch it, you can poke it. Like it's not quite the perfect home field team. We all know Mongolia is not China. Some people seem confused about this. Not a complicated concept, but the Mongols are such a fun team. There's no two ways about it. You want to root for them from the way they play. This very direct, committal, trade heavy, but also just beautiful CS. Honestly, sometimes when they do all in, they do all in so well. And the players, every single one of them can hit their shots. There's not a weak piece in terms of fragging. There's no snacks on this roster. There's no hunter, honestly, at times. There's no Karrigan. There's just fraggers. The part that concerns me is the reason I didn't pick them. If they had a different opening matchup, if that matchup actually was G2, if that was even Spirit, I'd be like, yeah, give it to me. I see that best of three upset happening. But against MOUZ, I unfortunately think they are facing an opponent who is sharp enough in both their decision-making and just raw aim to go toe-to-toe with them. There is also no true weakness in MOUZ. As much as I may put down at times, I guess, Brolan, and say, I don't really get his role. I wish I got more out of him. I think this is a position, if you had to upgrade, you could look to upgrade.
Yeah.
He's no bum. He's no, bitch support piece who just exists for the sake of throwing flashbangs and dying. He is a true Counter-Strike rifler. There's just a few things I would tweak. And they haven't played MOUZ in a BO3 this year, from what I can find. I mean, I was just checking notes whilst you were talking about it to try and find. I couldn't find anything, so I was like, either they've lost a game against them, or they simply haven't played them. But I think that BO1 is the only time they've played all year. So this is not this is not a team they have really tested their map pool against. And this is not a team I think they have a lot of experience handling. So yeah, going into this is going to come down a lot to that veto. If Mongolz can get an Ancient in, maybe we've got ourselves a series. But, well, they need Ancient and Mirage, I think, because I think Inferno MOUZ would beat them. And I think a lot of the other maps, they can't get Ancient through, they're going to struggle. So Mongolz MOUZ is going to come down a lot to that veto, and then to see if anyone chokes on stage. This is the biggest stage. We have prefaced this sort of playoff stage, a lot of us, by talking about how in the elimination and opening there was a stage, there was viewers. This is going to alleviate the pressure. It's still not quite the same. As much as it is daunting to look out and see a few thousand faces, maybe hear the noise of cheering, hear the claps, hear the stomps. It's not quite the same as the big stage. So I feel like there's a lot on the line here, but it's a perfect underdog pick. I can't hate that. As much as I can complain about it, if you look afterwards, I've built them up as a team who can beat Spirit. And then they have to beat, in my eyes, probably Vitality in the final. That's already a great underdog pick. They made the grand final.
I think based on from like some of the images I've seen of what the next stage is going to look like, for example, it's not too dissimilar to Rio. I guess is what I would compare it to. You know, they're trying to do like a central stage surrounded by the audience thing, from my
Right.
understanding,
Okay.
which is something that they do in a fair few games. I know Dota, League have done it
Yeah.
before as well.
We've done it
Um,
before as well in majors as well. It was at
yeah, yeah.
Krakow, for example.
Yeah, yeah, Star Ladder, Berlin,
Berlin.
I
Yeah.
think as
Also,
well.
yes.
So we've had examples of this before, but it's a very different feeling and environment than I think, you know, having the crowd only in front of you. You've got them screaming from behind you and everything as well. It's
Mm.
I can imagine that that changes the dynamic as well, and it's not something that, as much as MOUZ would prepare for the crowd environment, it's not similar to the simulations at all. So I
Yeah.
I don't know. I've got my reservations about MOUZ coming into the playoffs, mainly because I used to really like them as this sort of second to heroic and aggressive CT sides and going in for like very committed ideas and targeting areas. I love that about this team very quite a lot. But I think that's the one thing that when I saw them against the Mongols last time, I didn't think that they they looked as, I guess, well put together on those types of hits. It's something that I think that is sort of their bread and butter, and they looked super disjointed in the ways that they were approaching some of the map control takes, and then they end up just like canceling on it. So I guess that's for me where the weakness is for the Mongols, because I do think their CT side is their biggest strength, but it's also, when I see them lose, it is sometimes a player that becomes a liability, and it's not just Brolin. Sometimes it's exertion in some of the positions he
Yeah.
plays. They just don't find production in their zone, and it affects the rest of the squad very very poorly. So they're
Mm.
strong when they're all firing and they're providing that level floor, but as soon as that floor gives way on one, the rest of the foundations come very quickly crumbling, I think.
Yeah. Certainly some things to nitpick about MOUZ that you don't really like to see, but I did just do my full history. There is another instance of these teams playing. It's at the Cologne 2023 play-in. Hasteka still on the Mongols at this point.
Ah,
No
right,
Senzu.
of course.
It's an OT win on Nuke for MOUZ with a 50 kill Torji map. Like,
Is it on Nuke?
yeah, on Nuke, and Frozen is still playing for MOUZ. Like, it's a completely different era.
Yeah.
Realistically, like MOUZ with Brolan instead of Frozen are a different team. Mongols with Senzu in the place of Hasteka, completely different team. So I can't really assign anything to that. It's just another. It's more one for the history books. And if you go
Yeah.
further back again, they did play at Katowice 2016. These two orgs, just not, just not even
Yeah.
vaguely relevant.
But
So
just
yeah, I
before
was
we move
essentially right.
on, just before we move on, I do want to
Yeah.
say 910, shout out to you. You're playing the best Counter Strike we think we've ever seen you play, like individually, and he's not getting like super crazy numbers. You're not putting anything like ZywOo or, you know, those types of high impact rounds, but he's getting lots of like critical kills in mid rounds and not getting caught off. I don't think this guy's. I've seen him get overwhelmed or surprised basically the whole tournament.
Yeah.
So for me, he's like upped his game. He's really aware and he's hitting the shots he absolutely needs to. And then you've got like the Senzu running around chopping heads type player as well. So you've got that sort of weirdly like Donk Shiro esque dynamic where 910's not always going for like crazy openers or anything. He's kind of a round sealer, and that's what he's doing for the team. He's doing it well.
Yeah, really nice performance from him. Gonna need it though. They're gonna
Oh yeah.
need everything in this upcoming game. Like they're gonna be heavily reliant on everyone to be hitting shots. It's gonna be fun. That's the best thing I think about this entire playoff bracket. Even if you think maybe a couple games are slightly weaker, they are all gonna be fun. There's always gonna be a storyline. Even if it is just how many kills can Donk put on Liquid, that's still fun. Like realistically, that's gonna be entertaining. And all the way through that grand final, I think we're going to have good matchups. This is a great playoff bracket. So I'm really looking forward to it. Make sure to tune into the live stream. Watch party happening Sunday in place of Retake the Week. For anyone who cares about that show, we'll be doing that instead. My underdog pick is going to be a bit awkward. Because obviously you've taken what is the consensus best underdog. There's no two ways about it. And the other underdogs to the left, I don't think FaZe beat Vitality, obviously. I struggle to see Liquid putting up a map against Spirit, just because even though they made it through, I'm not convinced.
Yeah,
I'm
sure.
really not convinced. So I kind of have to pick Heroic to upset G2. Which is a tough sell, to
Not
put it
impossible.
politely. Yes, not impossible, but definitely a tough sell. I think Heroic for me are a team who, whilst they have done some impressive stuff in terms of their wins to get to this point, like beating Na'Vi to eliminate them, as much as we go, oh, look at that pitiful JL performance, relative to the last major, what a huge difference. And I've already put it in full context on Retake the Week, how this Na'Vi major performance is the perfect opposition to their last major. It is a fluke in every way the other one wasn't. They are perfectly mirrored. It's actually absurd. But more importantly, if you watch some of these rounds, like I believe I've got notes here that I didn't even write which map it is, but I'm pretty sure it's Ancient. Kixan was Kerrigan-esque in the way he was able to really commit to space, then call off the back of it. Like the way Kerrigan does in the big games, where he kind of puts himself on the line, puts a little bit more pressure on himself, then makes a great call off the back of it. Kixan was doing that in really awesome ways on that T side on Ancient. And I think this is a Heroic who are finally reaching their ceiling that we've been hypothesizing for the entire year, pretty much. Since they've had to rebuild this roster after the whole Stabby incident, we've been talking about how they could be really good. You've got these two supportive pieces, a kind of a fragging able IGL who's really young but shown a lot of potential, and m0NESY who is coming into his own as a star, but Dexter who just needs to find some of his old form. He's not quite at the level he used to be. He's not prime Dexter. But damn, he's getting pretty close. Like the occasional whiffed easy shot, but then these ridiculous little like mini highlight 2Ks where you're like, that's the guy. These key fights. I think it was on Mirage when they played Na'Vi, iconic Na'Vi map, and he's just picking up like double kills from Con on a two-man short push, which just seals the deal. And you think, this isn't quite the prime Dexter, but this is a good enough Dexter to make things happen. And they're going into a matchup where I think they have the better IGL. I have more faith in the system and the calling overall. And on their day, on his day, with the right maps especially, they have the best rifler. Because m0NESY has been that good at this event. And when he's truly rolling, he is that guy. He can take over maps, he can win them. Please remember, I'm trying to sell my pick of Heroic as an underdog. I think they have better, more experienced supportive pieces who know how to do their jobs to enable star players just a little bit better. And whilst we haven't seen a whole lot of them on the big stages dominating, this could be the Heroic run that really relaunches them as an org. Since the mess and the chaos of the Danish roster, this could be their event. They would then have to play my favorite to go any deeper, but once they hit semi-finals, that's a point. That's an underdog point. And I seal the crown. So, yeah, take it with a bit of a pinch of salt, how much I really have faith in them, because I am talking about them having to go toe-to-toe with G2, the most stacked firepower team currently assembled, or potentially historically ever assembled. Perhaps going only as far back as maybe Fnatic, when they signed Dennis as an IGL and just started shooting heads instead of thinking.
Right.
That might be the last time I've ever had that much insane, delusional faith in a team's just raw firepower to win events. But I think it's plausible. I think it's possible, given the flaw G2 have shown us across the year, that Heroic can make that upset happen. Score me that one vital point.
Yeah, I guess on that comparison, I would maybe say like old FaZe with like coldzera, NiKo, and Olaf.
Well, coldzera was a dud. NiKo was a dud at that point. I'm going to be blunt.
It's just if you're thinking about like
post wrist injury Guardian, no thank you. The only thing on that team that makes sense is NiKo, which is I've got it here.
Yeah.
And I've got an even more refined, more intellectual version of him. Like, I'll take current NiKo, even if the raw fragging numbers, the firepower rating isn't quite as high. I'll take a few ticks off that for free mid rounds. Let's put it that way. But yes, it's quite the dominant team in terms of just fragging people out.
Yeah, I guess I really come to appreciate the heroic calling. Because I like you're sort of saying, Kixon took some big risks in some of these games to actually get them to this position, and he did it in a way that Carrigan sometimes doesn't get away with, where Kixon actually stays alive while he's doing these plays.
There is a key, yeah. He can shoot a little bit harder than Carrigan, can't he?
And I think he's got a better sense of self-preservation maybe than Carrigan does. There is, yeah, I don't know how to feel about heroic, and I understand you're trying to sell them as an underdog, but
yeah, I couldn't pick Spirit here. Like, as much as sometimes I get comments on the videos that like, idiot, why didn't you pick? That's not how it works.
Your options were Liquid, heroic, or FaZe, and yeah, I mean, it would be a little bit silly to pick your favorite and FaZe in the same the same opening matchup. I guess you guarantee like one a winner out of that, but
yeah, essentially saying I believe this is the real final. This is the Vitality FaZe the real final. I can't. Not with what I've said about FaZe. Like, I just really can't.
Yeah, I guess I don't really have like major points of criticism for heroic. I mean, they're kind of ramping up at the right time. From Rio to what? It wasn't SBU, was it? I think they made finals. Trying to remember. Yeah, they made finals SBU, then they made finals Thunderpick.
Thunderpick, they lost 3-1 to Mongolz, right? SBU, they made the final and lose to ENCE? Was that
Yes, they did. They did lose to ENCE. So I think they're trending up at the right time, which is cool. And I guess it's also in line with the general calendar we give teams when they pick up integral pieces. Like the AWPer is definitely no small one, and especially one as out of the scene as Dexter was. I guess I don't think they win this opening matchup, and I think, to be honest, after the player break, they probably try and make a move for some Pius. If I'm being completely honest.
I don't think you're that wrong.
Yeah.
Because there's going to be, look, I said this in a Reddit comment today, but if you want to promote your stuff on Reddit, you've got to try to interact with the community. And occasionally I find a post that's not too literally insane where I can add a comment. But I expect a very different scene next year, where essentially how many pieces Falcons can rip out that they actually want will decide how many dominoes fall and how wide-reaching the changes will be. But let's say if they do get themselves like at least 4 out of 5 of their players are like the all-stars they want, I don't think anyone makes it out unscathed other than in the top 10, other than like Spirit and Mongolz. And I expect Spirit to potentially look around the Russian scene as they go just eating each other to potentially think, well, if we couldn't quite make it, do we believe in basically Magix and Zontics? Do we also make changes? But I think we can talk about Spirit in a bit. But on the point of like the scene will look entirely different. Yeah, that change, that one Falcon just coming in and just cannibalizing pieces from teams, key pieces from big teams especially, it's going to lead to widespread changes.
Yeah. I think I'd just be very surprised if Heroic... If they make it to semis, that's already more than I ever would have expected from this team. And then if they make finals somehow,
I think most people are shocked they made playoffs. I had them in my pick of making playoffs, but I've been buying the Heroic stock as it keeps. Well, I bought it at the bottom and I bought it as it kept on rising. So I was pretty hyped about that, and I've decided here to make it's more of a thank you buy. Like it's like you guys have given me so much. Here's one more. Like I'm just gonna put a little more in that stock.
Man, why did I pick the Mongolz then? They've messed up both my 3-0s, and then and then I had them in 3-2 with Vitality, and I lose all my points there. So it's not like I picked the wrong teams. I just put them in the wrong place.
Before we get onto your pick, did you get the points for this set of pickups? The elimination stage. You didn't. Oh wow!
And
I thought it was
got
big
0-3. I got big 0-3 as well, and it just didn't matter because I had Na'Vi in there. I had Vitality Mongolz, so I've lost 3 points in the middle section, and then I lost both my 3-0s because Mongolz beat them both in best of ones. So
oh wow, damn, that's rough. Yeah, because I had a 3-0 pick that was correct. I had Vitality 3-0. I had an 0-3 correct because I had wildcard in this one.
Wildcard, probably.
Yeah, wildcard, and then my other one was Furia because suck it. I refused to believe, and that's all I'm gonna say. But then in my 3-2, 3-1 bracket, I did have Heroic. I had Mongolz there. I did have Na'Vi, but I got 4 of them, so I ended up with
Yeah.
6 out of 10, which is enough. All I'll say. But yeah, we'll get into. I think we'll probably end up discussing like a full bracket breakdown by the end of this video. So let's get on to your favorite, because, man, I feel like you've only got one pick that makes a lot of sense. But...
I'm picking G2. I'll be honest with you, I'm picking G2.
Yeah, it's the only one that makes sense to me.
I understand that this G2 is also prophesized to undergo changes, and sometimes they encounter problems facing other organizations that have a mask as their logo, mainly the French one. I do think that they are not going to have any problems versus Heroic, and as much as I think Vitality have played clean-looking Counter-Strike, I don't think that matters when you're playing a G2 that sometimes just hit the same site 4 times in a row and devastate you without any bias. So I'm pretty happy with the way things have panned out for G2, I guess. I guess it's a team that has a lot of eyes on it because of the names and the firepower that it has. I don't think you always need to call a very complicated style, and I think they do just outgun people. And I don't think Snacks is a liability, which I think is sometimes a focal point. I will say m0NESY hasn't been in number 1 form, but I also don't think he's had to be in these games to succeed. Like Nico is also playing ungodly levels again for this tournament, which I think is only going to reinforce the idea for me that this team can just succeed. Like m0NESY is putting up good numbers, Nico is, MOUZ is doing his job. Like he's not like in some of these previous tournaments putting up like a 1.3 or whatever, but he is creating space and the team is cleaning up. And you know, where you sometimes see weaknesses in Hunter or in Snacks, they are having maps where they are finding a lot of impact for this team, even if the stars are, I guess, struggling to get off the ground. So it seems well rounded in a weird way. And to be honest, I wish that would. I honestly just wish this team could be like frozen in time with this 5, and they could hire analysts or people to work alongside this team so that they could just be the best team in the world. But I guess I don't get my dreams. So
I mean, I'm going to be blunt. Add Kixan and Saw to this team, and they're the best team ever played. But, you know, just to go over sort of their elimination stage, for me, G2's weird, because m0NESY has, whilst maybe not been technically number 1 devastating, he's only put up a 1.33 rating, 0.86 KPR. He's still, like, T-side clutching, the best player on the planet, which, considering he's an AWPer, ridiculous. And that's been his MO for saving G2 all year long. Like, even before the Snacks move, it's essentially m0NESY with an AWP is so good in the clutch, they actually don't need anything between the opening and the clutching to make sense on their T side, and they'll win rounds. Like, MOUZ will rip people apart, m0NESY will clean them up. The difference of this event, no MOUZ. I have read a little report. He's been ill during the elimination stage.
Right.
So coming into it, he's just essentially played an elimination stage of subpar CS as just a hard entry, and Nico has picked up the slack. That's what I'm reading into this. So honestly, going into the playoffs, they look very dangerous. The things that make them work should be there. And even if m0NESY wasn't putting up a 1.5 rating or whatever nonsense, he was plenty good enough and has been one of the few players who's been able to consistently up his game in arena matches. He's been outstanding this year in the big arenas, and that's going to be a huge part of this. So for a pick of G2, that's what you want to see. It's quite simple.
Yeah, no, I guess to realign it, it's not that I don't think he's playing great Counter-Strike right now. I think it's just when G2 look worse, m0NESY gets more chances to express just how good he is at the game. You know, he's put into more crazy or unfavorable positions that only the world's like elite, and I'm talking 3 or 4 players currently in Counter-Strike, could pull off. And you know, in their struggles, that's where we've seen the biggest highlights for someone like m0NESY. So I
Yeah,
guess
that's fair.
right now it doesn't matter that he's not putting those types of numbers forward because he's never been thrust in those positions as frequently as he was in the past. So it's
Yep.
hard for me to not think that G2 can just win the whole major. If not them, then in my opinion it's probably Vitality. So I think we are picking on the right side of the bracket to
Yeah.
think about that final.
No, we definitely are. I think that semi-final, should it, as we expect, I've picked Heroic, but if we kind of expect G2 and Vitality to face each other in that semi, it does feel a bit like it is the final. Just a little bit. But they will have to clean one thing up, because they can't win without improving their T-side opening kill rate. That has been a key part of them winning in the past, and whilst it is well and good winning a retarded, absurd amount of 4v5s on T-side that they did in the elimination stage kind of groups, I don't expect that to be really something that lasts. Not everyone's going to let you get away with that. So they do need to clean up that side, and hopefully it's quite simply MOUZ is sick, he comes back, He actually wins more of his fights, he doesn't take as many opening deaths, and they don't have to worry about it. But they had a stupid, 37% opening kill rate on T-side, and a 60% 4v5 win rate. Not happening. Not happening. Even with m0NESY being that great clutcher, I said, you look at Blast World Finals, he doesn't actually win that many clutches. When they win that event, despite being perfect on his 1-to-1, 1v1s, despite still being the last alive, great time alive, the actual clutch points, tiny, minuscule. Whereas for the majority of the year, where he's bailing them out, they're not playing well, huge. And that's kind of what we saw in this opening, in this elimination stage. He did have a lot of clutches on T-side. So a rebalancing, a return to what makes them a winning team, and they will be devastating. So difficult to deal with, and Vitality will have, White the Juggernaut on their hands. But I've got that faith,
Yeah.
I believe the viewers are going to pick G2, and that'll decide a lot.
I mean, understandably. I mean, if for the stats, and you talking about them losing opening kills made me think, oh, I actually didn't look at their opening kill rate. One of the lowest opening kill rates on T side, but also the highest 4v5 in trading percentage of any team
That's what
that
I'm saying.
We saw on the stage. Yeah.
But this is not something they consistently do. This is not how they win historically. This is just how they've had to play at this event with MOUZ dying. Dying and dying and dying. So,
but in the rounds that they do find an opener, it's 100. It's the 100% conversion rate.
They close it out. Yeah.
They're the only team in the stage to have had that, and they don't always have the biggest sample size. Of course, they're playing 2 best of ones, a best of 3, or 3 best of ones. But 3 best of ones and a best of 3. So your map sample is lower than all the other teams.
Low. Yeah, but we have to consider it just as this is the info we have.
Yeah, of course.
And it's a bit offbeat. It's a bit different to what we expect. But no, definitely a dangerous team. If they can get a decent version of Hunter, not the best, not prime Hunter. They don't need the 1.2 rated Hunter who just dominates CT sites.
You just need a map. You just need a map.
A good map, and then a couple non-terrible ones, and you could probably beat most people with this version of m0NESY and a slightly better MOUZ. So I am scared. Rightly, I know I'm taking a risk picking against them, essentially, by taking Vitality. But I'm just looking forward to that 9 a.m. Saturday. Yeah, I'm going to be waking up, pulling out my phone. Sorry to my girlfriend, but I'll be sat there in bed at 8 in the morning, watching Counter-Strike. But that better be the game of the event.
Well, you're not getting up for MOUZ Mongolz or G2 Heroic.
Those are the quarterfinals. I am not going to be waking up at the crack of dawn just for them.
Damn.
I will be watching them afterwards because I'll have all day to. But Saturday, I'm not going to wake up for that semi-final before them. But their semi-final, that potential G2 Vitality Game of the Year type semi-final, I'm going to make some sacrifices.
Yeah, sure.
I'm gonna get a bit of a scowling look and a cold shoulder for a few hours, but it's fine. It's fine. I'm watching that damn game live.
Listen, the major only lasted a month.
Yeah. And I didn't ruin my sleep schedule for anything else. This one game that I have to absolutely see live and direct. But all right, those are our picks. Quite a stacked board. Let's just go through these because we haven't mentioned, obviously, Liquid. We haven't picked MOUZ. We have not picked FaZe. And we haven't picked Spirit. So I want to start there.
I was gonna say we kind of talked about MOUZ, but you know, Spirit,
Not
Liquid, FaZe,
directly, but
yeah.
let's start with the biggest one we haven't talked about directly. Spirit, they have donk. And if we're going by the small sample of the opening stage, or the elimination stage, it's so annoying that I have to talk about these stages as if they're all the major. What should be the group stage? He was in top form, and quite strangely, because I saw someone like highlight this somewhere, being like, "Oh, look, when donk gets an opening kill, they win the round like 80-something% of the time." He didn't actually end up leading the team in opening attempts, and also, no matter who got the opening, that was how often pretty much they won the round, because donk was closing incredibly well in terms of the mid round, the late round. He was finding all the kills to finish rounds off. He wasn't just the opening monster. Chopper took a lot of that load so that donk could be let loose, I guess, in a lot of ways. And it's a different look to Spirit. Not ultra differently optically, but it's a slight variation that we haven't really been used to seeing. A more sacrificial Chopper with a kind of baity is a strong word, especially it's because it's CT-sided, most of this change. But like a donk who's less relied upon to find the very first fight, I think is a bit of a different look. But he was just mowing people down. Like what form he was in. 1.5 rated or something stupid for the opening. Yeah. And then everyone else just had to be passable, and they were able to make it through. So how dangerous a Spirit do you think to take this event? They're on your side of the bracket for your Mongolz pick. The only pick that starts on that side of the bracket. Do you think they've got an easy run, or do you think they lose to the winner of Mongolz MOUZ?
I think they definitely can lose in the semifinals. I don't think Spirit are going to pose much of an issue. I think what's been interesting to watch with Spirit is, like you said, you know, this shift in priority in terms of who's taking opening duels. I think it is in direct correlation to some of the struggles that donk himself has had. Like you can see the heights of what he can accomplish when he's, you know, set up and teams aren't, I guess, precisely sort of anti-stratting his positions as frequently. And I guess if they're going to try and counteract that on the side of Spirit, they either have to find, and I think we saw this at Cologne, find players that are going to find opportunities elsewhere on the map. And I think we've seen Zontex try and do that in previous series. We've seen Magix as well working with Chopper, and sometimes like mid crawls where donk is playing extremities instead. It's about changing focus and trying to make it hard for your opponent to read. It's just no one else can do it like donk. So this is like, I think, the third adaptation to their calling that they're making so that donk can do what donk does best. Yeah. And it does fall very much in line almost to like a Karrigan-esque style, or I guess a G2-esque style when they still had HooXi to a certain degree. And it's maybe the natural evolution for a lot of teams when they enter the tier 1 space, because they realize that there's layers or there's levels to this. There's that other teams are trying to counteract your best players as much as they possibly can. So yeah. I don't think, to be honest, I don't think the calling has always been as bad as people are making it out to be. I think it's, again, one of those situations where you see the stars that are on this team and you think, why aren't they doing more? And I totally get that. But I think this is them in their third revision, trying to find something that works at the tier 1 level, where they know that they cannot just rely on donk to just run in head first every single time and that be a consistent mode to actually get their hands on trophies.
Yeah, they've had to make an adjustment here. I'm looking at his T-set numbers. 23% opening kill attempts at this event so far. That's so low. Like, yeah. That's not just...
That's role player. That's like, role player entry stats.
Like, it's not prime entry, like, in the current meta sort of opening stats. This is lower than MOUZ would attempt. So this is lower than... And he's been the prime example of the hard swinging is OP, make your best player do it. He's been kind of the pioneer almost of that kind of style, where teams have got just superstar hard entries. It has been a lot of Chopper taking that initial fight, donk being able to trade, being able to thrive a little more in the mid round, close out the occasional round as well, use that mechanical prowess to its fullest advantage. And man, I'm impressed with just the results in terms of how comfortable he looks, because it does look frustrating for him when he's having to do a lot of that heavy lifting and it's just not working. the events where he takes ridiculous amounts of opening deaths, and when you watch it happening, you're kind of like, was that just the idea? He swings, he dies, round over. So I'm glad we're seeing a little more variation, a little adaptation. I think looking at their bracket, they've got a comfortable Liquid win. I don't think Liquid can pose much of a threat, despite, perhaps liking what I've seen out of NAF, a good level out of Ultimate, and every time Yekindar's not terrible, we have to kind of highlight it, but he was far from terrible. He was good. So, despite all that, I still don't think they have what it takes to match up with Spirit, especially not with a donk in this form. So I see them making that semi. If you get your way, and they face the Mongolz, I don't even know what to think in that matchup. Like, I don't know how you see it going. Obviously, you'd like the idea of Mongolz winning it.
Yeah, of course.
But I'm like, that's about as coin flip as it gets, just in terms of their head-to-head. I think they have a better chance of beating MOUZ.
I would agree with that, actually. I think just in that head-to-head, and maybe it's colored by the fact that they've had this matchup before, right? I think that's probably why. But I don't know. I think the Mongolz are just in hot form right now, and they're not even playing like a super laid back, very strict style. They're very sporadic and very aggressive. And to be honest, that's the type of team that Spirit themselves aren't really too fond of, because I think there are players that unfortunately just don't have enough presence to deter players like that. If it's not Donk, then it's Shiro, and I don't always think Shiro is putting himself in high traffic areas enough, I guess, to deter it.
That's historically the criticism. Just Shiro's going to be too far away from the action, too passive.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So if the Mongolz, if they're playing to that level and they beat a MOUZ, I would worry for Spirit in that semifinal. But listen, I think it's just weird to think that, so much of the conversation for this major is about like who the best player in the world is, and now it's not even about, who is the best team in the world. I think it's hard for us to have that conversation when one of them that was supposed to be here didn't make it, and the other one is still here, and it's showing good form. But the teams that are, I guess, less talked about, and that to me is more a MOUZ or more a Vitality. They are looking a lot more cohesive as a unit, even though they've still got elite level players on the team as well. So I really do. In a weird way, I want like a Spirit Vitality final in a weird way, because I mean we cannot have G2 and Vitality and Spirit. I'd kind of almost want that direct head-to-head for our top three in there, but I almost don't want those finals to be purely about which of these superstars has the most stopping power, because there's so much more to like the supportive cast behind these squads, I think.
Yeah. One of the, I think, almost beautiful dichotomies of this second season of the year has been three guys just looking to wrap up number one player in the world, like maybe not personally, but in terms of our narratives, in terms of what we're watching. It's about these three individuals versus the most dominant team of this run being none of them's team. It's been a team of just complete, best star players, otherwise kind of role players, just making it work on a very well-constructed, well-thought-out system. That's been one of the best parts. So it's a kind of a shame in that way that we don't have Na'Vi in the playoffs, just to sort of offset this individual's narrative. Because I was listening to Snake and Banter, I think. I only listened to about the first half hour of it when I was coming back from the gym today. But they were talking about this bracket. And they were talking about how in a dream world, you see all three of these top one candidate players at least play against another one of the top one candidate players at some point. So you'd want Vitality to play G2, and then you'd want the winner of that to play Spirit. That's great. That's an awesome narrative, and I think they make for some amazing matchups. But it's a shame we don't have that counterpoint of Na'Vi, still being relevant, still being in pursuit of their era, still trying to somehow validate the first major by winning another major. It still would not have validated the first one, for crying out loud. I feel like making an entire video just to explain to dumb fucks how flukes work and what was... it's mind-boggling. But anyway,
it's a team that have gotten better since that major. It's not like
it's a completely different win condition.
Yeah, exactly.
Are you mad? JL playing like a superstar on 2 out of 3 maps, literally for every series, is not how they won the rest of the year. It's completely different. It's like if you told me Team Spirit won Blast Spring Final with Magics on a 1.2 rating. Like, that's how much of a contrast that was. Like, it was just ridiculous, the difference. So, yes, that was a fluke. But anyway,
yeah.
Back to the actual topic at hand here. Spirit, Donk will be an interesting match. I hope they make the final just so we get the top 1 players facing off. I think whilst it is slightly less interesting due to that lack of contrast, it is still the topic. And I think for me, I know some people already have made their minds up solidly who they have as number 1 player. I'm kind of still... I'm still swayable. You know, I'm a swing voter in this context. You know, we've all been thinking US election this year. I'm going to keep using that lingo. I'm a swing voter on this one. Like, I'm not set whether I'm going blue, red, or orange. Like, convince me. I'm not really sure.
Every person I've talked to always starts off on a tale or a story. You know, everyone's latching onto a story as to why they think this guy is the top 1. And, you know, it's all about your values or what you prioritize more. Yeah. Everything is valid. But I agree. I'm kind of... I see all those arguments and I understand them. And I'm still going to have to pick my own favorite.
Exactly, yeah. I'm like, yes, I get that m0NESY with the AWP in a very un-AWP meta is doing some amazing stuff. T-side clutching, like, what the hell? How can you even expect it to do that? To play T-side and then also clutch? Ridiculous. Then to have all those kills, all that impact. Wow, amazing. And then ZywOo, just almost like an unmoving iceberg of just constant frags. Like, he's taking down ship after ship after ship, just on the AWP, on the rifle. Doesn't matter what he's doing. He's outstanding at getting his numbers. And then Donk on the rifles, taking ridiculous amounts of fights, just non-stop brawling, warring, winning head-to-head fights with ridiculous consistency. The stats I've been working on with EDR about this, fair fights, head-to-heads, people both have the crosshairs looking the same direction. Who wins what? It's AWPers, and then above them, Donk. Donk is ridiculous. So yes, the narratives are beautiful, glorious. Yeah. Let's see who comes out on top. Let's talk about a team who have none of the firepower. Let's talk about FaZe.
Oh, okay. I thought we were going to talk about Liquid for a second. I'm like,
nope, we're talking about FaZe.
Okay, yeah.
I think FaZe needs to be addressed because as much as it's cool that they made the playoffs, it doesn't feel like major playoffs without Karrigan at this point. I am so flat in my evaluation of FaZe, and sure, they got a BO1 win against MOUZ, and you're like, that's something, right? The fact that they need 3 maps to beat Furia, who aren't even playing that great at Counter-Strike right now.
They've been getting better, though. Yeah, they have been getting better.
Meh. Just because Skulls is now K-Serato, and K-Serato is now Skulls, doesn't mean it's better. It's just a different kind of mid. I'm just disappointed by the output of a lot of these individuals. That's the problem I have. I do think Karrigan, whilst I have been impressed with certain like leadership moments where he's taken, you know, that brunt, that weight, he's made the big play, made the big call, and it's worked out to beat Furia. I still think he's not quite got all the magic he used to. Like, he's not quite the great old Karrigan who wins that major. He's not got that juice left in him, and the individuals who need to shop around him, rarely do you get more than one of them, honestly, in a series show out. So I struggle to see them putting up a fight against Vitality. Maybe one map of Karrigan magic is what we'll get, like map 2, down 1-0. He'll find a 13-10 win. But I'm struggling to see a whole lot more. Please tell me you've got some saving grace for this roster.
Oh, bro, they would have lost a wild card in their opening round if Rain didn't like hard carry them through through an ancient. Sorry, like they genuinely would have lost a wild card. And you know, as much as I think there's potential in the wild card team, and I love what they're doing or whatever, that's a team that they should beat every single time. Just literally player for player, they should outclass them, and they don't. So. Except for, I guess, Raiden Frozen. Anyway, I've been down on FaZe, and I think we both have for quite a while now.
It's sad.
Yeah,
But
they make playoffs, and yeah, you think, oh well, maybe this is the one, and then they disappoint in the playoffs again, and God, they just don't have like a killer instinct to them. It's really weird. You know, you've got so many elite level kind of names or players on this team. You've got a lot of variability in who you can use as your weaponry, and yet all they shoot are rubber bullets. I feel like there's almost none of the bite of an old phase. And yeah, we had rounds from Karrigan in the elimination stage where he was making a good sort of pocket decision or a pocket call that, you know, he was taking a lot of the ownership or the responsibility in round openings, and actually doing a pretty good job in some of these closer games. But outside of Karrigan, there was kind of nobody else making those types of decisions. And I know Karrigan is kind of the sacrificial lamb, but even then, the contingency if things went wrong for those Karrigan planes didn't seem the best. So yeah, I would be surprised if FaZe somehow stay isolated or kept in a bubble from all the weird roster moves and things about the off season, because I don't expect them to go very far in this bracket. The fact they even made it to the playoffs in the first place may be its own minor miracle.
oh, it is. It definitely is. Like, they were coming into the Furia matchup. Like, I believed in them to beat them. When I watched, especially after I watched map 1, I was like, damn, this is it. Like, the end of FaZe. Like, I titled the last episode of this show that exact thing, and I was like, if you go out 2-0 to Furia, there's no world where this roster comes back. And sure, now if they come into here and upset Vitality, man, they might milk another 3 months of this.
Yeah.
And that's going to be obnoxious. But let's put it this way. I've seen some weird tweets out of Fnatic players coming out of their... Just, I think... I'm not sure if it was deleted. I'm going to look it up.
0-3 exit?
Yeah. Just in terms of seemingly unsure about their future. Certain players maybe changed their handle, then changed it back. Yeah, and some tweets seem to have disappeared since then. I'm not going to say which players. But I'm just saying Rain occasionally has a flash, but I think there could be better players in that spot. And I'm a big Mattis fan. I'm a huge Mattis fan. So if you do end up being involved in the whole like cannibalization process, maybe if you get a huge buyout for someone, you could go pick up a couple other players. But I would be so up for FaZe Mattis. Like, that would have me FaZe up, like, straight up. I'm such a big fan of that player. He is exactly what you need. Like, he's a value add in especially gun rounds. Doesn't farm ecos, none of that shit. But need him to win an unwinnable round, find unhittable shots. He can do it. And he's right in the prime of it. So that's just where my brain goes right now in terms of players. Otherwise, we'll just have to see what comes out, because we really don't know how the offseason is going to play out. It's going to be very active in terms of social media content, speculation, and then especially once the moves start, figuring out how the moves end is going to be the biggest problem, the biggest piece of the puzzle. Like, where does this all end up settling down is going to be the real question.
Yeah, I mean, people love to forecast and prophesize whether they've just won a major or if they've just made a new roster with Simple on it. We'd love to think about the heights that a team can hit, but you know, sometimes we're right. Other times, you know, it's a little harder to predict. You know, you think back to Astralis when the whole Kirby situation happened. Everyone was like, "Oh my god, no! Now the whole team's gonna fall apart," and then all of a sudden they were good. They were just as great, actually even better, I'd say. So it can be hard to predict in that sense, and maybe even G2. I don't know. So
It's going to be a lot.
This off season is going to be a lot, because it's not just going to be about roster moves. It'll be about retaining as much VRS as they possibly can as well amidst all the roster moves. It'll be teams picking up whole cores or trying their best to retain whole cores so that they can keep their VRS for the invites. So
yeah, that's a topic we actually brought up on Retake the Week, was like, actually, if you are Falcons, do you just take the core out of FaZe? Of G2, sorry? Then if you're G2 losing 3 players, whose core do you steal? And how does that team justify losing it? And
strategically, it doesn't make sense to do it. to be
it's
honest.
going to be really difficult,
Yeah.
Which will make the change, I think, so widespread, right? That's what's going to end up making it so difficult to truly unpack ahead of time. So, no, FaZe, I think, should be looking to be a part of that. And yeah, let's move on to our team who, well, neither one of us came into this thinking we're going to pick these guys. Let's put it, let's be blunt. But we'd like to talk about them.
Yeah.
They got some cool players, some names. Liquid. They made it through to the playoffs after playing, some teams. They lost to Na'Vi in the opening BO1, and you're like, all right, cool, that's as things should be. Beat Game Legion, beat Furia, beat MIBR, and you're like, kind of layup bullshit is this? But yeah, they got kind of gifted a playoff appearance. If they had to play in a more important game, or if they played a BO1 against a tougher opponent, which then led to a 2-2 matchup against like a MOUZ, they're not here.
Hey, whoa! These are the exact same 3 teams in the exact same order as Vitality played to get into the playoffs. So.
But you don't understand. I didn't pick Liquid, so I don't care.
Literally the exact same 3 teams.
What's hilarious is that Vitality get gifted that by winning BO1s and having the good seeding. Liquid got rewarded with that for losing a BO1 to Na'Vi. So different energy. But also, yes, you're right. It is the same team. But I don't care. I am a hypocrite until I die. So
sure.
After Vitality broke these rosters, who were once great, Spirit, they then got to play Liquid, and Liquid got to beat them. But it is a bit of a... I'm just going to put it this way. YouM3, paint for me a way for them to beat Spirit. Something I don't think anyone predicts them to be able to do. How can it happen?
Ultimate ops donk every round.
Right.
That's it. That's all I've got.
There's no other way for them to manage it.
I mean, listen, people were looking at that stage and thinking, oh, wow, Ultimate's back. Like, he's hitting some nice shots. He's positioning himself well. And then you think about the teams he's playing against. He's like, Furia. Notoriously very, very good at spacing and playing around star players. I'm sarcastic. They are not. And MIBR, who are maybe too brazen or too bold sometimes for their own good. And if you're going to peek into an AWPer that's going to be aggressive and take aggressive lines, you have to have the right amount of hesitancy and the right amount of utility to force them off those angles so that they can never get engaged. That's the problem Ultimate has had basically all year after his debut. So, he played teams where I don't think properly take that into account. I think the best teams they faced were obviously Na'Vi and I think Gamer Legion in terms of counteracting certain things. But even then, Gamer Legion aren't going to be playing to full strength because they played them in the opening couple of rounds in the best of ones, and you play them in the same days. So you're never going to have the same insight or depth to how you anti-strat or, I guess, create your strat book for a particular team. So I do think a lot of it does hinge on Ultimate. I mean, the AWP role is one of the most important in the game, and I do value what we get out of players like Naf and Twist, but without Ultimate, especially with Yakindar's problems, without Ultimate, this team I think will just completely buckle under some of these more aggro plays in a way that is going to make Liquid look foolish, I think.
So if you're trying to make the case for Liquid, you can point to the fact they have beaten Spirit twice in 2024. Once when Spirit had Baz instead of Donk.
Insane, crazy.
Famously an event where you picked Spirit.
Yes, yeah, at the start of the year. And it's just...
An all-time double swing moment, that one. And then the second time was about, 2-3 months ago? In September, the last Premier Fall final.
Yeah.
Liquid did manage a win here. They did it without an outstanding Yakindar. He was pretty meh, especially in the deciding map. He was decent on Nuke, which they needed after losing their map pick of Dust 2. Always a questionable pick into Chopper, Dust 2, but whatever. They need to win Nuke and Anubis in a row, and they managed it. I don't know, that kind of paints a picture, because Donk didn't play terribly. He had a weak nuke, but aside from that, he was solid. I mean, mostly an insane dust too, but still. It was a decent level out of Donk. They still managed to handle it. They still managed to get 2 map wins. Neither one on their own pick. There's a slight case to make for hope as a Liquid believer. If you are one of the few Liquid fans left standing in the scene, you might point to that and say, hey, sure, it is, I believe, a group stage, is it not?
Yeah. No,
yeah, it is a group stage match, but it's proof that we've got what it takes to go toe-to-toe with these guys and neutralize their best player. So there is reason to hope.
I believe as well, though, talking about Spirit and the way that they've restructured their T sides, for example, I think this was one of those events where it was very noticeable that Donk was not taking opening fights. This was in and amidst the Cologne and this, we saw Donk just not utilized in the same way that we'd come to familiarize ourselves in the first half of the year. So I think this is also some of the growing pains for Spirit in terms of changing their approach. It had Donk playing, I guess, poor by his standards as well. So it's it's not the same. But I see what you mean. There's an argument to be made, provided. Again, I don't think Ultimate had a bad series as well against.
No, and he found a lot of first kills. It was 4-0 in first kills against Donk specifically. But yeah, I don't know. It's difficult.
That's what I'm saying. He's got to ult Donk every round.
Yeah, I mean, he did it 4 times in 3 maps, but still, there's a path to victory that isn't absurd. But I do agree with you that it does feel more like this Spirit is going to play better Counter-Strike than one we saw in September. They are going to be more dominant, and Liquid don't stand much of a chance. But the blueprint is there. They managed it once. Potentially they can manage it again. I'm just not believing, of course. I don't have any faith in that. Let's have a brief little... Let's just finish off the show. Let's talk about MOUZ. Where do you see this team ceiling at this event? Do you think they can win it all? If they give us a resounding, confident win over Mongolz, they're 2-0, clearly no shakes, no nerves. They don't understand the chance because they're in Mandarin. How do you see them finishing off? Could they then go on to win it? Or do you think they still, even on their best day, confident, not shaken by the crowd, do they still lose to a Spirit or to a later on Vitality or G2?
I simply believe that MOUZ don't have a clear superstar player in the same way that these other teams do.
We don't believe it. It's just true.
It's
how it is. Yeah.
I mean, there's so much conversation about Jimmy and how good he is. I think there's a lot of talk about. I think there's a lot of posturing from fans to think that he is kind of superstar level, and he puts up great numbers, and he's super good.
It's me. I also literally made that case. I was like, Jimmy is a superstar, just in a way, like he's a roundabout way, just because of the roles and all that other stuff. And I still kind of believe that, but in a traditional sense, yes, not a superstar. There are none on this team.
Yeah. So I think you unfortunately just can't. I don't believe MOUZ have enough to make it, but I also think that was the case for Na'Vi Copenhagen. So I don't think it's impossible. I just don't. I think the odds are against them when the further through the bracket they get. The Mongolz will be a good test just to show like baseline levels. But to be honest, the playmaker on this team for me is Exertion, and sometimes he has cold shoulder games that just no one fills that void. So I guess I'm fearful for MOUZ because there's only a couple players I can rely on to do things and make the team look better, and they're not of superstar level caliber where I can expect that consistency. So it's hard. Even though I actually think structurally the team is great. It's just if they got 25%, like a 25% increase over the next year, like an investment, they would reap the rewards of that so significantly for the rest of the scene in a way that it's kind of hard to quantify in current Counter-Strike.
Yeah, I have Shuhei as one of my, I believe, 5 best IGLs. I mean, it's a bit of a value assessment in terms of not just calling, but also fragging, but also youth and looking to the future. Like, that's why I have Kixan and Blitz up there, like, in that sort of second tier, just behind the Alexibi and Apex tier. Like, that's how I had them tiered up as the best IGLs in the world. Like, he is impressive a lot of the time, I think, in considering his age, considering the fact that he's a caller, still fragging out, still finding key kills, taking responsibility in the ways we expect from the great leaders, you know. And I was having a conversation with Regin, members have seen that, where he discussed essentially that the IGL now in going on into the future with MR12 is leader, fragger, tactician, in that order. Because you have 3 timeouts, or 4 timeouts in the game. You don't need your IGL to be hyper tactical. He just needs to be able to lead a team convincingly, you know, tell them which fights they're going to take and take them aggressively, take them well, execute what's in the game plan, and then himself be able to frag out as well. Like these ultra tactical adjustments in terms of, oh, we're 7 rounds into this T-half, or hell, 12 rounds into this T-half, we need to edge out 3 more. Here's how we're going to change it up. Or CT setups, here's what we need to change based on the minutiae of the reads I've been able to make, isn't quite nearly as relevant. So you do need to be able to lead a team, make them believe in the fights they're taking, and then frag out as well, just because you can't afford to have one weak spot that can be abused 2 gun rounds. Like, you just can't have that. So that's why I believe he is one of the IGLs of the future. Regin also put it quite well into words in that interview. So I see them as a team who should be in contention for years to come. It's just a question of how much more will you get out of players like Brolan? Will Zershin have a wobble on the big stage? Will Torji figure out his sort of ups and downs?
Yeah. Hmm. If if the unthinkable happens and FaZe make the final versus MOUZ, do you think that FaZe just win then? Yes, I know. I understand that. But to be honest, like for me, the dream for MOUZ, if they were going to make the final, is they play against a Spirit who have been their sort of academy come up rivals to a certain degree for the past year. Or they play. To be honest, I would have maybe preferred a Navi, but a FaZe is kind of I guess the next rivalry I have in line for MOUZ. I guess as far as the docket goes, because G2 Vitality doesn't really feel like rivalries in the same way, and I don't even know that they've played each other as much as I would kind of expect, given some of the deeper runs that MOUZ have actually run or had at tournaments. Um, so yeah, to me, that would be kind of the dream narrative for MOUZ, in that they battle their demons, they get themselves into a major grand final, and it's also what, a year and a half since Shuei did that with Gamer Legion or whatever, since Paris. Uh, I think there's cool ways to weave that in, but that's all very hopeful on MOUZ showing us that. I guess when push comes to shove, because I don't think it's just an exertion problem on stage, or I don't think it's exclusive to Jimmy either. I think there's a few players that sometimes just shy away, and maybe it didn't happen in Rio, um, especially when they're against the Brazilians on Brazilian crowds. It didn't happen in Rio, but they were also playing a Furia that probably shouldn't have been there in the first place, just based on the level that we expect from that team. So it's just, I think when they get into those harder matchups, that's where we'll see those nerves come in. I don't think it's just about the crowd. It's they know the team they're playing maybe is riding that energy, and they themselves have had their own deficits in that same way.
Don't know how long I've been on mute. Bloody hell. Hopefully not long.
Hmm.
Whenever I last coughed. But look, if you look at MOUZ this year, against Vitality specifically, they played them 4 times. A best of 5, which they beat them in, 3-0 Pro League. Classic MOUZ.
Sure.
A best of 3 they lost at Cologne. A best of 3 they won in Rio in the quarterfinal. Before they faced that Furia, they faced Vitality and beat them 2-1 for the privilege of then walking over Furia. And then a 2-0 loss at the Premier World Final. So in that matchup, they're not awful. You know, they have won it a couple times. Once on a real stage, once at Pro League, but there's little glimpses. I'm just about to look up their G2 match history just to see what that's looking like. Because in this year, I don't remember it happening a lot. Require these 2 teams. So we have them in August, beat them at Cologne. Dallas, they lost. Pro League, they beat them again. They did beat everyone at Pro League pretty much. That Pro League run was actually pretty impressive in terms of opponents. They beat them at Chengdu. They lost to them in Copenhagen. They lost to them, that's the year before. So yeah, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 matchups this year, and they're 3-2 against G2. These are just series. I'm not sure how many of them are actually on a stage, but I'm just reading them out. Like, they again have a decent record.
Yeah.
So it's not absurd that they go and win that final if they have shown the stones and the level to actually have made it that far. Because if MOUZ are off, if someone's not feeling up for the fight, if they're just not the troopers they need to be going into a game with spirit, bada boom, bada bing, they're not making that final.
I feel like I've just completely like implanted just fake information into my head as well, because I just looked up the Spirit MOUZ matchup. They've played them like 4 times this year, and 2 of them were actually at the Copenhagen Major. And so in my head, I thought they'd played more than that in a weird way, but I guess, yeah, this doesn't seem to be the case. So
yeah,
whoopsie.
They played each other twice at Bet Boom Dacha events, which is kind of fun.
Yeah, also true.
Both of them playing in that sort of layup cup for them. But no, it's going to be fascinating to see how this whole bracket plays out. Like, let's be honest, we've said it a few times. This is an awesome bracket for a major, and one we really hope goes the way of the teams we've picked. And in terms of like the matchups that then follow, like I know you'd like Mongolz to ruin everything. That's fine. I don't believe in it happening, but it'd be its own narrative in and of itself. You know, the Asian major, the first Asian team, yada yada yada. We have a lot to look forward to, no matter who ends up coming through. So that's going to be our episode, the shortest episode we've recorded in months.
Can I just say, just so everybody's aware, you know, because my picks are often tainted, my playoff pick'ems are literally like Vitality Mongolz meet in the grand final, and Vitality wins it.
Damn. Mine are going to look not too dissimilar, because I will have Vitality winning my pick'em. It's not going to be against Mongolz in the final, though.
Yeah, I think it's like Spirit Mongolz, and then G2 Vitality, and then, you know, Vitality win the major, but the Mongolz come second.
We have one half the bracket identical, I think. It's what it's going to come down to. But okay, if you enjoyed, leave a like. Keep an eye out for the posts I'm going to put up around the... Actually, I'm going to put the posts up now. So the video is going to come up tomorrow. But I'll put the posts up as soon as I can for the community to vote. Yeah, try to get it right, because it's me v you. That's all there is. The viewers against me. And yeah, leave a comment telling me your thoughts on all these matchups, all these games, all these little details. And sub if you want to see more content. Remember, members get bonus content as well as the right to vote and other glorious details that you can find in the membership perks. But all right, that's all for this one. We'll see you for the season wrap-up before the end of the year. Happy holidays. Goodbye.